Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to teach you how to play and practice difficult chord changes. So there's really two principles that we need to look at. The first is the idea of anticipatory fingerings. So when we shift from one chord to another, in order to have success, we want to make sure that our fingers anticipate where they are going as we shift from one chord to another. So for example, if we take a look at a simple example of E minor 7, moving to C major 9, in order to successfully shift from this chord to the next one, I need to make sure that as I am moving to the next chord, each finger anticipates its target. So for example, if we look at my middle finger here, when I shift from the E chord, the minor chord, to the C chord, the middle finger essentially goes from the B string all the way up to the A string. So there's a massive leap. So when I'm shifting between these two chords, I want to make sure that in between the E minor chord and the C chord, I'm moving my middle finger so that it's traveling to its target. And I want to do this very consciously. So when we're practicing anticipatory fingerings, we need to do this extremely slowly to make sure that we have accuracy and independence with our fingers. So again, watch my middle finger as I move from this chord to the next. So it moves all the way up to its target, and we want to make sure that we don't overshoot our target. So let's take a look at another finger here. So let's see what my pinky finger does. So in the E minor chord, my pinky is basically not playing anything, but when it moves to the C major 9 chord, all of a sudden it's on the G string. So when I shift, I want to just make sure again that I don't overshoot my target and that my finger is going exactly where it needs to go. Now, one more example, maybe we'll see what the third finger does. So the third finger has, again, a pretty big path of movement here. So it's going to shift from the D string all the way to the B string of the 3rd fret. So when I move, watch the third finger. When we are shifting, make sure that it gets right to its target, no more, no less. So if you can do that, then you've basically mastered the idea of anticipatory fingerings. Another example would be something like this C add 9 chord to this F6. So this is something I was practicing just before this video. So this is a good example because when we shift here, there's quite a lot of, coordination needed. So my pinky finger needs to shift to the B string, and my middle finger needs to shift to the A string here. So when I'm practicing going between these two chords here, again, I want to go really slow, just make sure that everything is going to where it needs to go. Now, a common thing that you'll see in beginner students is that they don't really think about anticipating where their fingers need to go, and a lot of the times they'll completely overshoot their target. So if you see a beginner practicing this, sometimes they'll sort of just try to go to all of the notes in the next chord all at once, and when their fingers travel, for example, they might have their pinky travel somewhere towards the G string and then eventually correct and go back to the B string. So you want to make sure that your fingers are going in the most efficient route possible. So really take a look at your hand, and again, practice slow. Make sure that's not overshooting its target, traveling to, say, the G string when it needs to go to the B string. If you can do that, again, things are going to be a lot easier, and you'll be able to pick up that chord change way faster. Another thing, too, is to make note of when you don't need to move a finger at all. So, for example, in this first C add 9 chord, in this F6 chord, my third finger can actually stay down the whole time. So sometimes you'll see people play a chord change like this, but they'll lift up their entire hand and move to the next chord. That's inefficient in reality. If you can keep a note down, make sure that you're keeping that note down, because that's going to, again, provide an anchor point. So this segues actually into the second idea, which is to maintain a tactile sensation when we change from one chord to the next. So a lot of the times, beginner students, when they're moving between chords, you'll see them lift up their entire hand in order to move to a different sound. Now, for some chords, you'll kind of have to do something like that, but there are a lot of chord changes where you can maintain a tactile sensation on your guitar, or basically just keep your hand on the strings, and that will help you to feel a lot more anchored. So for example, if I go between a G major bar chord and an A minor bar chord, I do not need to lift up my hand in order to play this. All I have to do is basically play the chord, take off the pressure, but I can still keep my hands touching the strings, and then I can land on this A minor sound here. So the tactile sensation is really nice because it gives us an anchor point, or just sort of feeling of control when we're using the strings as basically a medium to keep us grounded. Another example would be something like shell voicings here. So when I'm moving between these, there's really no need to lift up my fingers when I shift between the chords here. Basically what I'm doing is sort of just slurring my hand, especially in this example where I go from like an E string chord to an A string chord. Instead of lifting all the way up, I sort of just like slur my fingers while still touching the string set here. And again, that helps me feel a lot more grounded. And when we maintain a tactile sensation, there's far less coordination that's needed to shift between one sound to the next. So for example, if I have to pick up my entire hand and move everything, that's a lot more coordination. That's going to require a lot more coordination than just sort of slurring everything and moving it in an anticipatory way to its next spot. So once again, if you can work on developing this idea of anticipatory fingerings, and if you can maintain a tactile sensation, changing chords is going to be something that will be really easy, and it's something that you'll be able to master in no time. So anyways, I hope this helped, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.